Welcome to day 242. We're in Ezekiel, and we're getting ever so close to lots of different prophecies. We're in prophecies right now that we're going to talk about today that are important. If you have your list, I just want to show you real quickly. Here's my list for the 1,000-year reign. What's going to be happening in the 1,000 years? And that's all from all the things we've been reading. So that's just the 1,000-year reign that I've written down. I've already got stuff for the second coming of Christ. I already got have things for Armageddon. So hopefully you've been keeping track. There's no way you could just sit down and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to find all the things on the 1,000-year reign and then write them all down, because I've already found that they don't reference every single thing in the margins of your study Bible. So that's another reason why we want to make sure we keep our lists. All right, just to kind of put things in perspective for you. So after it's all said and done, we're going to go back through and look at the chronological order of events of what's to come and what we can expect in the future, because it's really, really cool. It's going to be awesome, at least for us. Okay, so let's talk about the Good Shepherd. In Ezekiel 34:11, it says, "For this is what the sovereign Lord says, I myself will search and find my sheep." So this is the coolest thing, that Christ is, when he comes, he himself is going to go throughout the world and bring everybody back. Okay, now that might be part of the 1,000-year reign, but when he comes, he's coming to make a statement, to save his people, because his people will be on the run at that point in time. And he's going to go straight into Armageddon and just, with the breath of his mouth, annihilate probably a couple billion people. And then what's going to happen is the land of Israel is a lush, awesome. Even Eden is, the Garden of Eden would be jealous of. If you read part of this, you kind of get this. God is going to make, obviously, if God's going to reside here, Jesus is going to reside here, he's going to make this awesome. And the nations aren't going to scoff at it. So all of chapter 36 is really about what you can expect in the 1,000-year reign. But let's kind of go back to chapter 34 and talk about the sheep and the goats. In verse 17, I used to think this was only in the New Testament, but it says this, "And as for you," oh, hold on a second. Let's go back for a second. I want to keep reading a little bit about the Good Shepherd here. I will be like a shepherd looking for his scattered flock. I will find my sheep and rescue them from all the places where they were scattered on that dark and cloudy day. He's talking about in the past here, when they were exiled, and then they were dispersed into many nations. I will bring them back home to their own land of Israel from among the peoples and nations. I will feed them on the mountain of Israel and by the rivers and in the places where people live. I will give them good pasture land on the high hills of Israel. There they will lie down in pleasant places and feed in the lush pastures of the hills. I myself will tend my sheep and give them a place to lie down in peace, says the sovereign Lord. I will search for my lost ones who strayed away, and I will bring them safely home. The people who have strayed away, he's going to bring them back. I mean, that is a very, very cool thing. Okay. And then at the end of that it says, "But I will destroy those who are fat and powerful. I will feed them, yes, feed them justice." Not so good for those other people. Then we get to verse 17. An extremely popular verse. And I used to always think that was just a New Testament thing. And I've read it many times, but just not noticed it. "And as for you, my flock," this is what the sovereign Lord says to his people, "I will judge between one animal of the flock and another, separating the sheep from the goats." Okay, so we go to Matthew 25 and verse 32. Let's just read 31 as well. "But when the Son of Man comes in his glory," all right, this is the second coming thing, separating the sheep and the goats. "When he comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit upon his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered in his presence. And he will separate the people as the shepherd separates the goats, the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep at his right hand and the goats to his left. Then the king will turn to those on the left," verse 41, "Away with you, cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons." Okay, so We're going to talk a little bit about that, whether we're talking about the Great White Throne Judgment or we're talking about the second coming. But here we have when Jesus, this is during the 1,000-year reign, where he's going to take care of his people. Okay, so you can make an argument and say, so at the end of the 1,000-year reign, this could be talking about he's already done all these things, he's taking care of them, he's making the weak strong, and he's going to give justice to everyone else. Okay, I would say no, that's not what we're talking about. He comes and he does all these things. He gathers everybody, all his people, to Israel. And the rest of the 1,000-year reign is about everyone else, that's repopulation of the earth, and everyone else being jealous of Israel because they already have everything, not after the 1,000 years or at the end of the 1,000 years. So I think that would be the second coming time period. Okay, then we look forward and we see that this is in the same thought process here, the same concept. And David doesn't come at the end of the 1,000 reign. King David, he's going to be the prince. He's going to be the shepherd. Because he's coming back with all of us with Christ at the second coming. So I will rescue my flock and they will no longer be abused. I will judge between one animal of the flock and another, separating the sheep and the goats. And I will set over them one shepherd, my servant David. He will feed them and be a shepherd to them. And I, the Lord, will be their God. And my servant David will be a prince among my people. I, the Lord, have spoken. So I truly believe at the second coming and at Armageddon, he will separate the good from the bad. And he will bring all his people to Israel. And he sets up his kingdom. So where all the bad people come from after that, right? Okay. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk a little bit about the 1,000-year reign. 34:29, it says, and I will make their land famous for its crops. So my people will, what? Never again suffer from famines or the insults of foreign nations. Okay? 35:8 through 11. That'd be 36:8 through 11. It says, but the mountains of Israel will produce heavy crops of fruit for my people, for they will be coming home again soon. See, I care about you, and I will pay attention to you. Your ground will be plowed, and your crops planted. I will greatly increase the population of Israel, and the ruined cities will be rebuilt. Ruined cities haven't been rebuilt. Yeah, there's people living there, and there's cities there, but the ruined cities haven't been rebuilt. The ruined cities will be rebuilt and filled with people. That hasn't happened yet. That happens after Christ's second coming. I will increase not only the people, but also your animals. Okay? So Israel's going to be the place to be. All right. After the second coming. 36:14 through 15. But you, talking about Israel, will never again devour your people or rob them of their children. They were eating their own people, eating their own babies. Okay? Just to say, stay alive and not be killed by the famine, okay? But that was all their fault to begin with. Okay, and here's the wonderful, beautiful thing. Chapter 36, verse 21. Then I was concerned for my holy name, on which my people brought shame among the nations. God shows concern. God is not some intangible concept that we believe in, that we hope to achieve, to see someday and listen to. Oh, we can't wait to hear his voice. No, God, he made us in his image, and we have concerns, we have mercies, we have grace. We get that from him. He's concerned for his own name. That's the only reason he's saving his people. Okay? Now the last thing, which what I was alluding to a minute ago. 33 through 34. 36, 33 through 34. All of chapter 36 is about the 1,000-year reign. The whole chapter. Okay? So I'm just pointing out specific things. 33 through 34. This is what the sovereign Lord says. When I cleanse you from your sins, I will repopulate your cities, and the ruins will be rebuilt. The fields that used to lie empty and desolate in plain view of everyone will again be farmed. It's, a lot of the area back there is being farmed. Israel has learned how to use agriculture and is rich in some areas. They have a drip system in all their crops. God's going to make the whole land fertile again. It'll be farmed without any issues. Okay, so the whole point, what I was trying to make there is the repopulation. So he's going to separate the sheep from the goats and send the goats out and, to hell, wherever. We'll talk about that later. And he sets up a 1,000-year reign. And so all the people that are saved are there. And the people who are good people that survived the Armageddon and, in the world that are good, that he chose to save, are there. They populate the earth. It's not that we're in heaven, we have new bodies. That isn't probably going to happen. It's the people on the earth, the human people that don't have the new bodies, they will repopulate the earth. They have a new spirit, a new mind for Christ. But the children are going to grow up as if this is a normal thing. It's normal to them. Our children today think what's happening in the world is normal. Okay, probably not the late teens and early 20-year-olds, but the kids who are born that are under 10 years old, that grow up in what we're seeing today, are going to think this world right now is normal. Okay, during the 1,000-year reign, Christ is going to be there. King David's going to be there. It won't be king, it'll be Prince David, and we'll all be in Israel. But all the people that are repopulating, the young people, they're going to be like, what's the big deal? They won't get this. Not at the beginning. People will be talking about all this. We're talking about 1,000 years. And populating. Eventually, there's going to be fractions. Eventually, people are going to say, I don't need to go see Christ. He's been here my whole life, and he's never done anything for me. You get that today, now. People say that. And at the end of the 1,000 years, Christ lets Satan loose to figure out, he knows, but for Satan to grab all the people who don't want Christ, that want to defeat Christ. And again, it's like another Armageddon, but it's not Armageddon. Armageddon's at the beginning, before the 1,000-year reign. At the end of the 1,000 years, there's going to be another war. So that's way ahead. We haven't gotten to that yet, but that's in Revelation. But this has all the stuff to do with the 1,000-year reign. So that's your day 242. I'll see you tomorrow.